This is the Mind of Mansion program. I'm here with Andrew Cooper. We're going to talk about all these injury rehabilitations. Everybody's ahead of schedule. How is everybody so ahead of schedule? Also, Andrew loves tight ends. We'll talk a little about tight ends, breakout tight ends. We're going to do some tight end dichotomies, this tight end or that tight end. We got a lot coming up on the Mind of Mansion program. Mahomes, way ahead of schedule. Now Judkins, he'll be ready for camp, right? Michael Penix, he's going to participate in preseason in some way. Then, oh no, maybe not. Well, actually, we're gonna make sure we don't rush him, according to Stefanski. So every other day, there's a new report coming out about the injury rehabs for these guys that have torn ACLs, major ankle reconstructions, all these things. Are most of these fake reports? Let's go down the list of the injured players, and where do you see them in their rehabs, and when do you think they're coming back for real? Like with Mahomes.
I'll even add another one to the end of the list. We got to talk about George Kittle too, because he said that they asked him, "You're going to be back for November?" He says, "Way before." And now reports for him, just hot off the presses, that he's going to potentially be back for Week 1 as well. I mean,
Playerprofiler.com/news, playerprofiler.com/news. We just are focusing all of our news analysis on this kind of information, like the rehabs of the players that matter for fantasy football. That's all you're going to read. Andrew is from Fantasy Alarm. That's what their whole sort of enterprise is predicated on, giving you the information that you need about your fantasy team and only the relevant information about fantasy. I know that there's news about players that are offensive linemen, are defensive, are fringe, are about to retire, have retired. There's a lot of news sources where you can find that information, but if you want it distilled into what's fantasy relevant, Fantasy Alarms got you covered. Player Profiler/news got you covered. Let's get into it, man. George Kittle, you think Week 1?
that's what they're saying. In fact, you go over to a little website called playerprofiler.com/news. It says it right on there. 20 hours ago, San Francisco GM John Lynch, hopeful George Kittle plays in Week 1 after successful Achilles tendon rehabilitation, reattaching the Achilles tendon. I mean, the initial timeline was Week 5. Personally, I just don't see that being possible. And I don't see it being possible without some sort of rotation. That's the thing about tight end, running back, wide receiver versus quarterback. At quarterback, you can't just say, "Oh yeah, we're going to bring Mahomes back," but Justin Fields is going to play 60% of the snaps and he's going to play about 40. That's not how that works. Like, he's either back or he's not. With Kittle, I think no matter what, you can ease him in. You can use Jake Tonjes, you can use Luke Farrell, you can keep him only for third downs or for specific plays. So for me, no matter what, I'm counting those games from George Kittle as duds. Like, if he's back for Week 1, I'm not going to start him. I'm going to start somebody else. And if he comes out and he plays more than 60% of snaps, sure, get him in there, fine. But for the quarterbacks, that's where it gets really dicey, because guys like, especially Michael Penix, he could lose his job, right? Tua could come in and take that job and be the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, and Michael Penix is now on the back burner, right? It's entirely possible that could happen.
I have a strong take that NFL teams should not be drafting left-hand quarterbacks at all unless they're completely and totally and utterly beyond special, like a Michael Vick, Steve Young archetype. Other than that, I say you're wasting your time, you're wasting your capital, revamping your whole offense, flipping it all around for a guy that is, not that much better than the next. I mean, was there really a big difference ever between Penix and Bo Nix? Not really, right? So what are we doing here, right? You with me on this? Are you with me on this? Like with the critique of the left-hand quarterbacks, and if there is one silver lining here, is at least Atlanta is consistent. They don't have to adjust their scheme and flip the whole formation, whether it's Tua or Michael Penix. At least they've got that going for them.
Yeah, this is going back. I mean, there's a reason that Bill Belichick famously only used lefty punters. And when they asked him why, he was straightforward on it. He goes, "The ball spins the other way." He goes, "All these guys all year, 31 different teams, they play 31 teams, the ball spins this way. When they face us, the ball spins that way." And that little amount can cause you to drop it or cause you to turn it over or misplay it. It's like, the ball is spinning the other way. You have to take your left tackle and put him on the right, right? The whole point of, the left tackle is protecting the blind side of your player. You're right. You do have to design everything around these guys. So I do think it's smart to go in there with Tua, and then you don't have to change anything. It worked out perfectly for them. The fact that Tua is on the offset language contract, for those that didn't realize how it worked out, because he got guaranteed money from Miami, he gets the bare minimum, veteran minimum contract from the Falcons. It's built into the contract. It's the same thing that happened with Russell Wilson and the Steelers, right? It's the same thing that's going on with Kyler Murray and the Viking. It's kind of a free look. That's why, to me, I look at it and I'm like, you know what? This is kind of it makes all the sense in the world from an NFL standpoint to take Tua, put him on this team where you have quarterback questions. It makes sense for Tua because he gives him a real shot of actually winning a competition and starting. And it makes sense for the organization because you don't, like you mentioned, you don't have to flip it all around. The problem with all that logic lining up is that these two guys both just might not be the guy, And I guess maybe you can learn that it is valuable information to find out, like, hey, you know what? Tua beat out Michael Penix, and then Tua proved to not be the guy. That means we don't have the guy at all here, and we got to move forward and find somebody else. But it makes sense from a organizational standpoint. I'm just not sure I love it for Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, because I want those guys to succeed.
If Penix doesn't participate in camp or preseason, then he's not really going to have a fair competition against Tua.
No.
So we can't really jump to a conclusion and say, oh, well, Tua is definitely better. Tua is starting. That may not be the case. I think it's 75-25. I think Michael Penix was actually, similarly prolific to Tua in college in their final seasons. Both these guys, they played with a lot of weapons. So, you can't really, compare them apples to apples to some other quarterbacks that didn't play with incredible weaponry, like say like a Justin Herbert, someone like, they're not playing with the future NFL wide receivers much. So it's that was one of those things where the Herbert Tua, they got drafted back to back, and it was like, hey man, this isn't really close, right? Sometimes guys are drafted in the same neighborhood and it's close, like with Bo Nix and Penix, sure. With Herbert and Tua, no, it was never that close. Yeah, because you're like, hey, look at what Tua did with these weapons, and it's like this one throw that really separated him. And I'm going to go Michael Penix. He's bigger, he's more athletic. I think he's got a little bit more of a future in the NFL. He's also had just way fewer reps to solidify his mediocrity. So I'm going 75-25 that Penix will end up winning this job, at some point in the season. Week 5, 6, it's going to be Penix. It also, Tua is inevitably going to struggle. He struggles with pocket awareness, so there's also injury risks, a separated shoulder, things of that nature, all around the corner with a guy like Tua. So we're going to see Penix. We're going to see Tua. I'm not excited to draft either one of these guys in any format at all. I think you mentioned Kittle earlier. Kittle, he's a guy I'm actually excited to draft as a second tight end. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, when you have guys like that with that kind of upside, right? And again, if I trust anybody to come back and get to full speed, it is these kind of guys, right? Like the Hall of Fame caliber guys are the guys that can come back from injury and play at a high level. Like you never want to invoke the name of like a Jerry Rice, but that's exactly the kind of guy that got hurt after age 30, came back, balled out. Tom Brady, Julian Edelman even, suffered serious injuries after age 30. They came back and played at a high level. So for me, I am willing to bet on Kittle, but obviously you need to make plans and have two. That's why, as part of the yin and yang tight end strategy I always talk about is if you do end up with a safe but boring tight end as your starter, like say a Jake Ferguson or something like that, take a risk, take the highest risk, highest reward guy as your second tight end on the bench. That's what your bench is for. And I think that's where George Kittle fits into a strategy this year.
In the last show, I talked to Jacob Sanderson specifically about another player coming back from injury. It's been more than a year for Jonathan Brooks. But the last time we saw Jonathan Brooks in 2023, he put up over 1,100 rushing yards, 25 catches, close to 1,500 total yards. We're talking, 11 touchdowns at age 20. Then he comes into he's still very young. I'm pretty excited about Jonathan. I'm allowed to be excited. He's just 22 years old. Like, he is the age that a lot of running backs enter the draft. Remember, he came into the league at age 20. Okay. Now he's 22. This is a normal age to enter the league. So I'm pretty bullish on Jonathan Brooks because I just think most of these players, they end up coming back. The injury that Jonathan Brooks sustained was not necessarily one like an Achilles that would sap your athleticism in the future, sap your explosiveness. It's just a question of getting it rehab, getting the range of motion back, getting the strength back. So I'm bullish. Though I like Chuba Hubbard, I just like this offense. I like this offense as a source of value. A lot of underrated players, good offensive line, the right division to play in. There's some high scoring games going up against some teams that are still in tank mode. Saints still in tank mode. So this is interesting. Jonathan Brooks, very interesting. I'm ahead of consensus on him. When I was just guessing what he goes for in Dynasty, I was off, man. Like, I was overpaying just with my initial heat check on what picks I would give up for Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, people are totally giving up. And I tell you, that's a spot for value for me. What I've been trying to do is grab Jonathan Brooks, and where I have him, I'll even go out and grab Trevor Etienne too, for the reasons that you mentioned, specifically that I think Dave Canales is great at scheming these guys up, right? And his system is I mean, it made Chuba Hubbard look good and make Rico Dowdle look good. You start thinking about that and you wonder, are these guys actually special, or is this system really conducive to high-end play, right? Like, not to go all the way back to the Tua conversation, but Tua looked good in a system that's been very friendly to quarterbacks. You look at Kyle Shanahan's system with, Brock Purdy having the highest yards per attempt season of all time in 2023. You look at it, Sam Darnold in the same type system with Clint Kubiak. Sometimes a system can just be really friendly. And for me, I look at this Panthers system and I wonder, is Chuba Hubbard really special, or is the system special? And what happens if Jonathan Brooks turns out to be special, like we all thought he was when he was the first running back drafted, and he gets that job, and now it's special on special, because we've seen a lot of good backs play poorly in bad systems, and we've also seen bad backs play well in the right circumstances. I watched LeGarrette Blount score 18 touchdowns. Is that because LeGarrette Blount is good, or is it because he was playing with Tom Brady? We watched Jamal Williams and Raheem Mostert score like did 20 plus touchdowns. Why can't the Panthers with Dave Canales and a great system land on a great back? So, and again, maybe the injuries have completely sapped him, and unfortunately, maybe it doesn't pan out like a Marshawn Lattimore. If that happens, I want to have Trevor Etienne in my back pocket. You sent out a tweet the other day about RB3s that are interesting. He's one of the RB3s that I look at, and I'm like, hey, you know what? If all this falls away and what we're left with is a Dave Canales system with somebody that needs to step up, that's where I'm going. Sorry, Trevor Achan. Him and his brother have corrected us on the pronunciation there. So Trevor Achan.
Trevor Achan?
That's what he's saying. Travis Etienne, formerly Etienne, came out and said that he pronounces his name Achan, and that's how he wants us to pronounce it moving forward. So Trevor Achan is a pronunciation.
Wait, so now we have Devon Achan and Trevor Achan, and they're spelled completely differently. Almost no letters the same, other than like E and N.
You got it, dude. You got it. That's it. That's how he grew up saying that, and he just basically got into college and say, yeah, they pronounce it like this, and I just let him, So that's what that. And now that he has switched over to the Saints, where there are a lot of people that want to pronounce it Achan, pronounce it correctly. He's like, yeah, actually, you know what, you guys are right. And I didn't want to correct people, but now that I'm rich, I want people to say my name right.
Yeah, in the Dynasty Dominator book, we talk about the strategy in Dynasty of just monopolizing a backfield. Right, the trade-offs aren't the same like they are for best ball. There's not the negative correlation is not a problem. You got 25 roster spots. You get taxi squads. Like, you can have Trevor Etienne on your taxi squad. You can have Jonathan Brooks on your IR bench. You can have Chuba Hubbard in your starting lineup. That's all good. This is an offense that's underrated. This is an offensive line and a run game that is efficient. This is where you want to put your chips in Dynasty, on a team like this, on a run game like this. And then in other formats, seasonal leagues, you want to just get one. You want to just make sure, hey, I'm leaving every draft with one Panther running back. I don't care which one it is of the three. I can get, Trevor Etienne in the last round in a deep league. I can get Brooks. I can get Hubbard wherever I'm getting him. I just want to leave that draft. I want to leave that draft with, man, I want to leave that draft with a Panthers running back and a Panthers receiver, because I could either get Ted McMillan, who's I think a strong buy this year. Jalen Coker, I love as a sleeper, going to be productive, not necessarily like a super prolific, but I like Jalen Coker as a a team wide receiver too, that is going to have weekly sort of a 20-point upside given the matchup. So Panthers, man, it's just there's really not a tight end I can get excited about. You would agree? There's no tight ends there, or is there one I'm missing?
No, no. As long as they split it. I mean, I wanted to see more JT Sanders. I wanted to see a lot more of him and a little less of Tommy Tremble, but they like the rotation. As long as that rotation is going to be there, there's nothing. I will say, whenever one of them is out, the other one does get like 6, 7, 8 targets every time. So we start them in DFS in those situations. That's basically what you're getting, is if one of them gets hurt, you get a DFS play. And unfortunately, JT Sanders, I was hoping that Tommy Tremble would walk in the offseason and they would potentially give him a bigger look, but JT Sanders broke his ankle on the very first play of the last game, and they know they're going to be missing him for a good chunk of the season. They just decided, hey, let's just fill out the room with guys we know, and that sucks for fantasy. But on the same token, probably consolidates the targets a little more among those top 2 wide receivers. And Canales did come out and say, almost unprompted, said Jalen Coker's the wide receiver 2 going into the offseason, which is a shot to the heart for Xavier Legette fans out there. I did a full study on him after year 1.
Who are these people?
They're out there somewhere, man. He's got a fatal flaw in his game, man. Something I saw on the tape for Preston Williams, if you remember that little cup of coffee. But Xavier Legette does not stay grounded. He, for some reason, somewhere along the way, decided that no matter where the ball is, he's going to jump. And every time the ball is coming his way, he leaves his feet, even on like slants, even on comebacks. It is insane. And what happens with that, not only do you make it more tricky to catch the ball, right? Like you're adding more elements to what's already a difficult process, but you take all yak out of the equation. And that's why you go and look at Xavier Legette. He's like outside the top 100 players both years in yak per reception, because he's leaving his feet and he's not staying grounded and getting that, getting the ball running. That's something that AJ Brown's always been incredible at. And then go and watch a tape of a guy like Legette, and he's giving himself no chance because he's jumping every time. It's comical. But like, if he can fix that, maybe he can get another shot somewhere else. But I think it's over in Carolina.
That is also a problem with soccer goalies, by the way. So on PKs, what ends up happening is some of these soccer goalies, they're jumping around so much and they're trying to like jump and anticipate with like jump, land, and explode out of their jumps, and they're just bouncing around. They're bouncing around. These guys that are bouncing around, what ends up happening is when the kick taker, the PK taker, when sometimes the goalie is midair when the ball is struck, and then they have to wait to land before they can react, and they react too slow, and the ball's already in the net. And so there's something about with some of these in sports, some positions where you must stay grounded in order to react with the proper explosiveness, with the proper timing. Because if you're going to be airborne all the time, you're really going to lose control of your sort of body position, and you're going to have less ability to adjust.
Right. And it's a mental thing. You think when you watch Legette, it's so funny because like when the ball comes to him, it's almost like he thinks he has to be doing something beyond just catching it. It's like a mental tick. It's like the yips almost, right? Like you've seen a pitcher with the yips, they just can't throw it, right? Just throw it over there. Like he thinks he has to be doing something else, it seems. So I'm not sure. He needs some sort of sports psychologist or something, because he's the soccer goalie bouncing around all over the place and it's not working.
You know who stays strangely grounded, where it's almost like he plays smaller than he is sometimes, but that's just because he's so good at staying on the ground and I mean, when was the last time you can even remember Justin Jefferson leaving his feet?
Exactly.
You never think of Justin Jefferson airborne.
And then when you see it, like the famous Bills fourth and 17 catch, you're like, yeah, he had to go get that, right? So Xavier Legette, when he does make crazy catches, they look incredible. They look awesome. But when they don't, it looks like that clip of Treylon Burton. No, was it Treylon Burton? Who's the Panthers wide receiver before him that had the clip where he jumped and caught the pass and landed out of bounds, like 7 yards out of bounds? Like that is you know what I'm talking about? That is every catch for Xavier Legette. I put that in the article. What's sorry?
We're talking about Panthers wide receiver pre-Legette.
Yes, it was absolutely cartoonish. Now I'm the Panthers bust before.
Let us know in the comments. Hey, this is why we live stream.
Know.
We live stream these podcasts so that you can have the audience participate, and if the audience can remember the wide receiver depth chart pre Xavier Legette. Typically, I have that pretty. I have that like I remember. Kelvin Benjamin. You're not talking about Kelvin Benjamin.
They've got that's not Kelvin Benjamin.
You're talking about post Kelvin Benjamin.
Post Kelvin Benjamin. They've got a long history of them of bust wide receivers. I got to find this one.
Yeah, I mean there's been a lot. I wish I was better. I can't.
The chat will get us, dude.
They're saying Laviska Shenault. No, right?
No.
No. This is gonna bug us. This is gonna.
Right
we'll get it. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. Quinshawn Judkins.
I got it right here. Jonathan Mingo.
Oh, of course, Jonathan Mingo traded to Dallas. That's right. I forgot.
The Mingo play, the Mingo jump catch out of bounds, dude. Absolutely cartoonish. And that is Xavier Legette's whole career. So Jalen Coker, to me, by default, he's the guy there. He's also obviously in a position where if they do draft a wide receiver, he's in big trouble.
Jalen Coker?
If they draft a wide receiver, I mean, that's the thing about being the wide receiver too. It's extremely rare to have 3 fantasy relevant pass catchers all on the same team. So if the Panthers do draft a wide receiver, that would be brutal for Coker. But right now, it's looking good.
It might be brutal for Coker in 2027, but in 2026, man, unless it's like a first rounder, I'm not that worried. Coker has established himself. He is athletic. He was super productive at a small school. He earned reps as a rookie after being undrafted from Holy Cross. Like at this point, and he already has, like in March, coaches coming out and insisting that we've already decided the depth chart and he's definitely number 2. It's like, so when you actually think it through, the bar that's been set by Coker is quite high for a player to come in new and be like, I'm going to outplay this guy in camp and in preseason, and I'm going to steal his job after he's worked so hard with this coaching staff for 2 years and Bryce Young. I actually have a hard time seeing that. What ends up happening, though, is that those guys end up starting to develop during the season. They start earning more reps. And then in 2027, suddenly we have a debate.
Right? It's true.
In 2027, suddenly it could be like we have now at this point, it's like Michael Wilson versus Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's like this is suddenly a debate. I love that. Right? I love that. But at first, Marvin Harrison arrives, and because he's a top 5 pick, there's no way Michael Wilson's going to be able to crack that. But once Michael Wilson establishes himself, once Michael Wilson says, "Hey, I'm a day 2 pick, and there weren't high expectations for me, but I just keep outplaying this guy," suddenly this is like a wet rope that's like getting away from Marvin Harrison Jr. He's like, wait a second, what's happening? I can't reel this guy back in. And it's like, dude, you're not, I mean, who do you have more exposure to right now in best ball? Is it Marvin Harrison Jr. or is it Wilson?
Marvin Harrison.
Okay.
So for me, I look at it because I went back. I still believe in Marvin Harrison Jr. I believe in the talent. Also, I will say for one spot where I push back here is that when you go and isolate all the games when both players were healthy, Marvin Harrison Jr. outperformed him in every statistical category. Targets, yards, touchdowns, receptions, every single one. And then if you isolate them for just the games when Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback too, just to see those, every statistical category, Marvin Harrison Jr. was better. Michael Wilson was great in the games where Marvin Harrison Jr. did not play based on a ton of volume. But when they were both on the field, Marv was getting the ball more. He was doing more with the ball. He was scoring more touchdowns. That's the problem. That's the hang up I have on getting fully on board with Michael Wilson is do they look at the games where Marv was out and say, Michael did enough now that he deserves to get the targets over Marv when we come back next year? Or does it default back to Trey McBride is the number one first read target, and then the next guy is Marv, and then Michael Wilson's third, like it's been in every game when both are playing? That's the rub I have with it. And honestly, for me, I've been kind of out on both guys to some degree, just because they are kind of battling to be the second fiddle behind Trey McBride for who at quarterback.
That's true.
It's a little scary proposition.
No,
I mean, I was in over my skis. I should have listened to you last year.
I'd love to get more into Michael Wilson. I'd love to be all in on Michael Wilson because I have been such a huge Michael Wilson fan for so many years. But at this point, because McBride is so undeniable,
right,
and this offense is so in flux, and Marvin Harrison isn't just a top 5 pick; he's also quite good. Right. He isn't a total bust top 10 pick. That's not what he is. Right. This isn't like a Charles Rogers situation. Like, he can play. Right. He's just has this volatility about him. My only point is when guys especially emerge in like year 2, year 3, year 4 from small schools or late picks, undrafted, typically the coaching staff wants to reward them. From a culture standpoint with the team, this is something you can't put back in the tube. Like, Adam Thielen was never going to go back to being like the 4th receiver once he broke out. And so, like, there's no going back. Like, Michael Wilson's, like, he's here to stay. Like, even with Poker is here to stay. I just want to, when these guys, this isn't like, oh, he flashed and then, there was no, like, this guy had to earn it to get there. Like, to be the alpha wide receiver last year, Michael Wilson had to earn it.
Yeah, and to your point on Coker,
earned it.
To your point on Coker, even especially for the short term, like even super high end guys that became super high end guys had to wait their turn and learn the full playbook. Like, people forget CeeDee Lamb as a rookie, 94% of his routes from the slot was a part-time player behind Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. Jackson Smith and Jigba was a part-time player as a rookie. Famously, from this show, Chris Godwin, and you said, hey, trust in Chris Godwin. We love Chris Godwin. Stick with him, but he will potentially be behind. He's behind Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans here. You know what I mean? So we got to wait it out, right?
And this was a second-round pick. I mean,
second-round pick.
Chris Godwin was a second-round pick, a premium second-round pick with, ultra athletic, impressive profile, comes out early. This wasn't like Michael Wilson went to the Senior Bowl. He had very little college production because he was injured the whole time. He falls, well into the 3rd round. No one had any expectations for him. No one had any expectations for Jalen Coker, for example. But even guys with expectations, like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, like a Chris Godwin, like so many players, it's not until like halfway through their rookie year that they start to earn something like a full-time role. And even then, it's typically out of the slot, and you don't see them really blossom until year 2. So this is
who you're talking about right now. You know who you're describing right now? Luther Burden.
Yeah, man.
Could be.
Luther Burden is. I mean, it would be different for me evaluating Luther Burden if the whole fantasy industry wasn't already jumping to the conclusion that he's elite. It would be more helpful. Like, I would love to he's the type of player I would love to bet on in year 2, making that leap, being like, oh, he wasn't that productive last year. But it's like, no, this is how it works. This is the logical progression. But in some cases, the Bears are so undeniable. Luther Burden had such a hive coming out of college. People were so locked into that sophomore season. And I like to take some credit for that. Like, we really, with the Breakout Finder app, the 2026 class is up in the Breakout Finder, with our sophisticated modeling to give the probabilities of whether these guys are going to break out. Is this guy gonna have a 1,000-yard season or not? That is the threshold to be a breakout. And some of these guys come in over 50% chance. It's rare, but you're going to have guys like CeeDee Lamb that are, crushing, like closer to 60% chance of breaking out. And it was cool to see, like, draft capital matters so much with the breakout finder. CeeDee Lamb crushing Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, the receivers drafted before him in that draft class, just because the metrics that matter, metrics that are predictive, that's where CeeDee Lamb was really crushing. So
I want to with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's a great example for the Burden discussion. Let's take CeeDee Lamb and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Luther Burden, right? But all three were part-time players as rookies. In the next year, they got full-time roles, and CeeDee Lamb was drafted as the wide receiver 12 in his second year. And he went out and had 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. And he finished as wide receiver 18. So technically for those people, CeeDee Lamb in year 2 of fantasy, he disappointed them a little bit. Jackson Smith and Jigba on the flip side was drafted like wide receiver 20-something. And he went out and had 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns, virtually the same season that year 2 CeeDee Lamb did, but everyone called him a breakout and a win because we didn't overdraft him. And then obviously in year 3, all of Godwin, JSN, CeeDee Lamb, they were top 5 wide receivers in fantasy. Lamb and JSN were wide receiver 2. And that's, to your point on Burden, is if he comes out this year and does have 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns, that is the same progression that we saw from JSN and Lamb. But depending where we're drafting him, because the entire industry is steaming him up, that could actually end up being a disappointment. That's where you got to be really careful with these guys, is that it doesn't always go 0 to 100. Sometimes it goes 0 to 60 to 100, and 60 is just fine. But if you're drafting that guy as a wide receiver 1 and he gives you that, then you're not getting the value. So that's why we do got to be very careful. But it's also part of why I'm very interested in Luther Burden in Dynasty.
Let me give you 3 receivers, the 3 receivers that are most closely adjacent to Luther Burden in best ball. You ready for this? Right now.
I'm ready.
Zay Flowers, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle.
Wow. I mean, you can't draft him over Zay Flowers.
You can't draft him over Devontae Smith.
No. Zay Flowers, people, like, the crazy thing about Zay Flowers, when you go to people and you say, hey, where did Zay Flowers finish in fantasy last year? Everyone's like, I don't know, wide receiver 15, whatever. He was wide receiver 7. Like, Zay Flowers is awesome. Zay Flowers is awesome. Zay Flowers has never played poorly. His only bad games are pretty much exclusively game script related, right? Like, Derrick Henry runs away with the game. And, you know, after the game, the thing is, being a Zay Flowers fan and a guy who rosters him, it's hard to be upset with Zay Flowers when you watch the game, because you look at some of these games and you're like, oh, yeah, they didn't need to throw it 10 times to Zay Flowers. But when they do need to do that, he does great. I mean, the guy has been nothing but great. So, again, you know, if you put him on a different team, if you were to swap Zay Flowers and Amon-Ra St. Brown and he got to play that role, right? If you were to put Zay Flowers and Ben Johnson's office now,
with like a pocket passer, a pure pocket passer.
Well, guess what? Declan Doyle is coming over. I know he doesn't have a pure pocket passer, but that's why they went and got Declan Doyle, who worked for Ben Johnson. And there's a real possibility that they take Rashad Bateman or whoever and put that person in the Jameson Williams role. And then you've got Zay Flowers playing a role that's similar to what Amon-Ra St. Brown plays. I mean, what is Declan Doyle coming over to do? Why do you hire this young guy who's only coached for one guy in one scheme to bring over elements of that scheme? I am very excited about Zay Flowers.
Yeah. And Zay Flowers is always healthy, never misses games. He was wide receiver 7 in fantasy football last year in full PPR leagues with only 5 touchdowns. Think about that. That's insane.
Good player.
That's
so
ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't draft Burden over him. Devontae Smith and Waddle. I mean, again, those are proven commodities that are also in good situations. So it's a tough realm, man. I'd be happy to just take whoever's cheapest of that crew, but I can't draft Burden over Flowers. Not right now. Not with the way the stars are aligning here.
I just can't draft Burden, man. I wouldn't take him over Waddle either.
Right. The situation is good for Waddle. It's a copycat league, right? So teams are looking around and they're saying, what are the best passing teams doing? Well, they're taking a big split end, not a sacrificial X. They're taking a split end that can actually play, and they're putting them out wide. And they're saying, okay, this guy's going to be tethered to the line, and you put your best corner on him, and our guy's going to win. And that's what they did with Mike Evans and allowed Chris Godwin to play slot flanker and go in motion and go all over the place. And that's what the Bengals have done with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It's what the Cowboys are doing now with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb playing that slot flanker role. And Cortland Sutton is the perfect guy for that exact thing. And hopefully Sean Payton's done with the whole big slot, Lucas Kroll, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Evan Ingram business, and he just lets Waddle play slot for 3 wide receiver sets, and he stays out there and plays flanker for 2 wide receiver sets. And that is the formula that gave us the all-time highest scoring fantasy seasons. Cooper Kupp, right? Yeah. Cooper Kupp, 400 PPR points. CeeDee Lamb, 400 PPR points. Both those guys were top 7 or so in routes run from the slot. That is the formula. That's what we want. So Waddle, big time upgrade, right? With this spot, gotta be.
Burden, his ceiling is Jalen Waddle. So why am I? How is it possible that he's going before a guy who represents his ceiling?
I'll tell you why. No, one word, dude. Shiny and new.
This is what I'm saying.
It could be anything, right? He could even be Jalen Waddle, right? So
he could be so good. He could be Jalen Waddle.
Right. Here's the thing with Burden is that I do think by year 3, I mean, it's entirely possible that he just takes a massive leap in year 2, but I do think in year 3 he could be the next guy that does the Godwin, JSN, Lamb ascension, the year 3 top 5 wide receiver thing. It's entirely possible in that scheme with that quarterback. The people that are drafting him where they're drafting him now are betting that it happens in year 2. And I'd want to have some exposure personally. I will have some just in case that's possible. But like you, I would be all over him if he was being drafted at like wide receiver 22. What's his ADP right now? Wide receiver 15, 14?
Wide receiver 21.
I mean, see, even there, I'm taking him a little bit. I will have some. This isn't going to be a guy that I only have 5% of. I got to find a way to get him in there because we have to acknowledge there's a world where he does just come out and rip faces off in that scheme. And with the
you got Garrett Wilson's in that neighborhood. You got
I'll take him over Garrett Wilson
in that neighborhood. You got Ibuka in that neighborhood.
I'll take him. Who is the name after Garrett Wilson?
McConkey.
I'll take him over Garrett Wilson for sure. McConkey is such an interesting one, man, because
McConkey is a smash.
If the scheme works the way it's supposed to, all this talk about Keenan Allen coming back makes no sense for an offense that uses 2 wide receiver sets. If this scheme, and here's the thing with Mike McDaniel, they let him bring his fullback. They let him go get a blocking tight end, Charlie Kohler. Like they're building the scheme the way that he runs it, which is a 2 wide receiver set scheme, with a fullback and a blocking tight end and a pass catching tight end that runs about 70% of his routes from the slot, which is what Jonnu and Waller did. And now what Aronde is looking to do. Like they don't have room for all 3 of those wide receivers. They really should trade Quentin Johnston, and whatever team gets him is getting a guy where they got the 5th-year option. Nice. Right. Mm-hmm. And now you can just start Trey Harris and Ladd McConkey as your top 2 guys. Otherwise, whoever the wide receiver 3 for that team is the odd man out in a big way. Whoever the top 2 wide receivers are, super highly consolidated targets in this scheme. Tons of pre-snap motion, super easy reads for the quarterback. I mean, Trey Bone.
Yeah, I think one easy thing where to get edge is just to come out and predict who the wide receiver 2 is going to be in some ambiguous passing games, and one of those is the Chargers, and that guy is Trey Harris. Just come out and say it's Trey Harris. Quentin Johnston is being drafted in best ball as wide receiver 45. And that's in the Romeo Dobbs zone. These are so many players in that zone that I just want nothing to do with, where I can chase upside elsewhere. Coker is going later. Jaden Reed is going later. Josh Downs is going later than these guys. Jaden Higgins is going later. These guys, Jaden Higgins has real upside depending on how things break for him. Juwan Jennings still a free agent. We don't know how it's going to break for him. So and then we haven't even talked about, where's Trey Harris? I haven't mentioned him. I got to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to get to a guy like Trey Harris.
Right. So, and for honestly, for both those guys, Quentin Johnston and Trey Harris, that is a good example of the middle ground fallacy, which is something that we were kind of looking at on Twitter there, which is for folks that haven't seen my article on fallacies, basically what the middle ground fallacy is when there's uncertainty about certain players and what their role is going to be, some people will be drafting one guy high and then some people will be completely off him. And then another group of people will be drafting the other guy high and then will be completely off the other player. And it brings both their ADPs down, where in reality, whoever gets the job is going to be worth way more than what their ADP is. We saw the best example is last year, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. One group of people drafting Daniel Jones, one group of people drafting Anthony Richardson. That brings their ADPs all the way down to QB 30, right? Both of them, QB 30 and QB 32. But the reality is, whoever got that starting job was going to be a top 20 minimum quarterback in fantasy just based on the weapons they had, just based on the rushing ability. And Daniel Jones did get it, and he was QB 8 before he got hurt. Like with the Trey Harris versus Quentin Johnston situation, for me, whether you're a fan of Trey Harris, whether you're a fan of Quentin Johnston, whoever gets that job as the wide receiver 2, an every down role in a super highly consolidated offense for a good play caller with a great quarterback in an offensive line that should be good once everyone's healthy with Joe Alt and all these guys, like whoever the guy is that wins that job, he's going to destroy his ADP. The difference is one of them is picked at wide receiver 45. And if Quentin Johnston is the guy, he will be better than wide receiver 45. But the other one is completely free. And we don't even know who the guy is going to be.
I do. It's Trey
You
Harris.
do. You know the future. You're in. You're fully in on Trey Harris. I'm for it.
Well, I know it's Trey Harris.
Huge.
He's 210. So he has the Chris Godwin body type. He's ready to have that Chris Godwin breakout. He's not Chris Godwin level athlete, but certainly more reliable, knows where to be on the football field in running situations and passing situations in a way that Quentin Johnston never will. Can squeeze the football better than Quentin Johnston in traffic, is better than Quentin Johnston in almost every way, except maybe like Quentin Johnston, even though he's not actually much faster than Trey Harris, will command the respect of the secondaries more and the safeties. So in 3 receiver sets, in long down and distance situations where they're not deploying 12 personnel, they are going 3 wide receivers. That's when you bring in Quentin Johnston and he plays that particular role. That's perfectly fine, right? When you actually are running your straight up 11 personnel, he can be that X receiver. You can post him up as more of a traditional X decoy, and then Harris and McConkey can make music together on the right-hand side. That's how offenses should be built. I've been talking about this for more than a decade, the optimal way to run offenses. We've been talking about it over and over and over again. And when they started going to this nonsense where they're trying to move X receivers inside and create these mismatches and everyone's an ex Marquez Colston and all these things, and it's like, okay, guys, sure, good luck with that. Right, okay. So as it turns out, no, your best configuration is going to be to have Quentin Johnston clearing shit out. Then you drag a tight end over where Quentin Johnston was, and then you let Harris and McConkey play off each other and create separation. That is how you're going to get first downs and score points in the NFL. I just gave the whole playbook away. That's all you need to know if you're running the Chargers offense, especially because you can always hand the ball off and get 6 yards behind that offensive line. So it's just a great offense to get exposure to. So placing my chips on McConkey, placing my chips on Trey Harris, placing my chips on Oronde Gadsden.
Yes.
Are you?
Yes. And that's why I said trade Quentin Johnston now, because if you what you basically described is how the Seahawks used Torrey Horton and Rashid Shaheed last year. And that's how Quentin Johnston probably should be used in this scheme. Like when you got to go 3 wide and stretch the field, you bring in that guy. But
yeah, that's it. That's his role. He's a specialist. That's all he is. And you can't rely on him. So you might as well at least threaten the defense when you need to 11 yards.
Right. My thought process is you can find that elsewhere for cheaper, which is why I say move that guy now while he has value. But Oronde Gadsden, I mean, you look at what Mike
sure,
McDaniel,
no, you're right. Yeah. The other reason to move that guy, by the way, is because you have way more information in Los Angeles about his weaknesses than other teams do. Other teams are not gonna, there's gonna be, I don't know, 10 teams that know what he is. Right? That have player profiler, and they're like, okay, this guy, he's terrible at contested catches. This is not This is not what you want out wide.
And just
But
like
there's plenty of scouts that are going to go and look up their TCU profile and be like, I can't believe we can get this guy at this price. He'd be a great asset for this offense. There's probably at least 5 teams that would think that.
And you have on your side the biggest the biggest barrier to making a trade, both in Dynasty and real life, is the why. Like teams go, why? Like right away, they're like, why are you getting rid of this guy? And same thing in Dynasty. But in Dynasty, if you have like 5 good wide receivers, it's easy for me to go to you, Matt, and say, hey, man, I got 5 wide receivers. You want to take one here and send me a running back? Like that, it makes sense to you. For the Chargers, everything
we brought in this Keaton Mitchell. We're adding more. We're going more jumbo packages.
Brought the fullback. We brought the tight ends.
I had a heart-to-heart conversation with my new offensive coordinator. And it turns out that we're just not going to be able to get the most out of him the way another team will. And whenever you're in that situation, you always want to go to the market and be like, hey, we can't get the most out of this asset. Can you get the most out of him? And if you think you can get more than we can get out of him, let's make a deal.
Right. You have that in your back pocket. Like, that's why it's so shocking when you see like, like the Dolphins, when they make that trade, like they have to explain away like, oh yeah, we don't want Waddle anymore because they have nobody else. They have the rationale behind it. You have to like come up with some sort of reason why you're doing it. In this case, it's right there. The fact that we can lay it out here on this show would be incredibly easy for Joe Ortiz and the guys to go out and do that if they want to do that. But yeah, to your point,
we always assume that, by the way.
Right.
We always assume that, hey, we're just fantasy guys, right? All we do is, run player profiler and are the face of fantasy alarm. And, it's all we do. We're not that special. I'm sure the guys what's his name in New York? I always get it wrong. It's not Joel Schoen. Sheen. What is his name?
Yeah, Sheen.
It's
Shane. No, it's Shane.
Is it
Shane.
Joe or Joel?
Joel.
It's Joel Sheen, right?
I think it might be Shane.
Okay, it's Joel Shane is how you... Okay, Joel Shane. This is a name I've been getting wrong, and I'm fine getting it wrong.
Oh,
like, there are some names that I'm embarrassed when I mispronounce them because these players are good. There's a high level of respect for this person, and I need to get his goddamn name right. When it comes to Joe Schoen, I don't fucking care how to pronounce his name. He's terrible. He's incompetent. He insulted the top equity holder of the team and somehow managed to keep his job. I still have no idea how that happened. The guy said, I can't sleep at night if we lose this player. And then he punted this player at 80 cents on the dollar. I mean, let him go, let him walk. What? So, I mean, you take a guy like that and you think that he's really thinking at another level of sophistication than you and me on this podcast? I say no.
Yeah, there's no question out there that there's some talent evaluators in the NFL that are brutally bad. There are some that I respect, like more than anybody in the entire industry in talent evaluations, like Les Snead and Brad Holmes and that whole tree. Even James Gladstone, we'll see how he does, but he's from that group. And then there's some of these guys like Mickey Loomis that it's head scratching. Yeah, Mickey Loomis has to know something about the Saints and that ownership group, because how he could be the longest tenured GM that doesn't own the team boggles my mind. That team is $50 million over the cap every year at this time of year. It's like absolutely mind boggling how that guy still has a job. So yeah, I'll give us some credit. I'll give us some credit on that one. And I'll tell you what, dude, when we look at this, that Chargers scheme, and you look at what Mike McDaniel has done, that's an incredible comment right there. Achan. Just everybody should just change their name to Achan. It'd be a lot easier.
It's Joe Achan.
Joe Achan.
That's the GM of the Giants.
I'll tell you, you look at Johnny Smith, right? For Mike McDaniel, 70% of his routes were run from a wide receiver spot. He was basically the de facto split end. People were looking at, because I remember someone being like, oh, why do we like Johnny Smith? He only runs like 25% of his routes from the slot. They weren't factoring in that he was running nearly 45% of his routes from a split end position. He was going all the way out wide with these two guys being able to mix and match, and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle moving around. That's what they're going to do with Oronde Gadsden, is that he's going to play a lot of snaps as the split end with Charlie Kohler as the inline tight end. And that lets you do all the pre-snap motion with Ladd McConkey and with
Trey
and
Harris.
with Trey Harris, right? Like
Yeah.
you said, oh, you come in and have the guy play split end. If you have two tight ends tethered to the line, those guys, you don't have to have anybody tethered. The Colts did that for years with T.Y. Hilton. They said T.Y. Hilton cannot block. He cannot get off the jam. What do? Well, we'll use Colby Fleener and Dwayne Allen, and then nobody will have to get off the jam. We'll just keep them off the line. And that's what they've been doing for years. And Darren Waller came in, ran 70% of his routes from a wide receiver spot. If Arondé Gadsden holds in this spot, boy, is it wheels up. I just hate the fact here's what I want. I want other teams to pay Jonnu Smith and Darren Waller or something, anything. Just I don't want them to go and muddy that up and follow Mike McDaniel. Please, no Jonnu, no Waller in Los Angeles. That would break my little heart because I love Arondé Gadsden.
Yeah, because Kohler helps ensure that he's going to get the targets. And
people are talking about.
I think of him as really like an ADP arbitrage on Kyle Pitts.
Right. People are talking about Charlie Kohler being a problem. Not a problem at all. He got the exact contract. He got the going rate blocking tight end contract. Look at the contract that Josh Oliver got. Look at the contract that Colby Parkinson got. Like, look at the contract that Julian Hill, the guy that was doing that job for Mike McDaniel. Look at what the Patriots paid Julian Hill. Charlie Kohler just got the Josh Oliver deal. That's what you pay a good blocking tight end. So I'm not worried about Charlie Kohler. I'm glad he's rich. He's going to be a good Noah Gray in this offense.
You know who he's most comparable to. So Arondé Gadsden is Kyle Pitts. Charlie Kohler is Dawson Knox.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And Dawson Knox got good money to do what he does, to be an inline blocker. Michael Mayer, Cole Kmet, good. Go ahead, block. Blocking is important, but that doesn't affect the guy that gets to play wide receiver. It helps him out, in fact, that he doesn't have to be in line with his hand in the mud doing that stuff. He gets to play the wide receiver role in this scheme. So, yeah, that's great news. Phil, that's the thing is that when you're rooting for a guy, you want them to fill that room with complementary pieces that do the work you do, the dirty work that like you don't want your guy to do. Like when you have a running back, you want them to fill out that depth chart with guys that are nobodies, that are middle of the pack, whatever type guys. Like you want the room to be filled. What's scary is when the room is not filled. Like look at the Vikings right now. They have 3 guys under contract. That's a landing spot. Like you look at the draft, there are a number of teams that literally only have 3 running backs on the team right now under contract. What do you think is going to happen? You want the team to fill out the room for your guys with the Charlie Kohlers of the world and the Tim Patricks and all the, you know what I mean? The more Tim Patricks there are on the team, the less chance that team drafts a wide receiver that vaporizes your guy. So
you want your team to have a Sean Tucker. You want your team to have just recently, like if you're
nobody wanted Sean Tucker. Everybody could have anyone could have had Sean Tucker. Nobody wanted him.
Yeah, you want this. I mean, can you imagine? Why would the Chargers draft a running back? Would make no sense.
They won't. They won't draft a running back, and they won't draft a tight end.
Why would the Pittsburgh Steelers draft a running back? They wouldn't. It would make no sense.
Right.
Why would even the Jets draft a running back? The one team that I regret that we did not talk about more in the last show when we were talking about all the number 2 running backs, talked about Braylon Allen a lot with Jacob Sanderson, failed to mention Isaiah Davis. And that was a mistake by me. And thankfully, Rich Rebar from Sharp Football brought that up. And he's like, listen, love this list of number 3 running backs that could be the number 2 running back at some point, or that are just they're the actual backup. It's not the satellite back in the case of, say, Kamani Vidal. And that's great. But you got to talk about Isaiah Davis because he's actually quite good. And if you are the Jets and you have Allen and you have Davis, it makes no logical sense for them to extend him. I think it's the franchise tag and you're moving on just based on the talent they have on the roster and where that team is in their rebuild makes beyond 0 sense. But this was also my larger point that even though it makes 0 sense, you go to the news desk at Player Profiler, it's still 60-40 that the Jets extend Breece Hall. It should be like 20-80. Right? But no, it's 60-40 because that's just the default mode. If you have a player that has at a certain percentile at his position, that team will just default extend him. And it's maddening if you're in our position because we're like, we need to free up Allen, and Davis. Free these guys. And there's plenty of teams that would love to have Brees Hall from a fantasy points optimization standpoint. Come on, man.
Yeah. The problem you run into is that the longer these guys get into the contracts, the less their trade value is coming back. And the Jets understand that if they let Brees Hall walk, they're going to get a 4th-round comp pick back for him because somebody's going to throw him 12, 13, $14 million a year, and that's going to bring back a 4th-round pick. So unless a team is willing to actually give a 3rd-round pick, they're not going to take it. That's probably what happened at the trade deadline last year is they said teams were coming in probably offering a 4th or 5th or whatever, and they said, we are already going to get a 4th for this guy when he walks. So it's just – it makes it so tough, dude. And the Jets, I will say, like certain franchises, I don't know how things will ever change unless the owners truly stop meddling and commit to putting a true football man in between themselves and the field of play. The Chargers finally did it with Jim Harbaugh. And then they said, okay, you know what? We're screwing up. This guy's going to just run everything. As long as the Jets have Woody Johnson and the Bengals have, Duke Tobin, these guys. And then you look at the Cardinals with Michael Bidwell. He makes himself the president of the team.
I know.
The team has been around for 100 years. They've been around for 100 years, and they are tied for the fewest playoff wins of any team with the Texans, who became a team in 2002. It's like, so as long as, like, I look at Garrett Wilson tied to the Jets until he's 30 years old, and it makes me sick to my stomach. Like, it's just, you got to go in and get somebody. And I know Parcells is old and over the hill and crazy. It's not Parcells. Belichick is like old and it's not going to happen. But like, you need the teams like that need a guy like Belichick that's just going to come in and say, you sit over there. You sit over there and I'm going to handle everything. And I'm going to check with you, I guess, on a couple things if I have to. You can decide what color uniforms we're going to wear on Sunday. How about that? And I'm going to handle all the football. And Jerry Jones needs somebody to do that. A lot of these owners, they need to get out of their own way, and they just can't. And that's why a lot of these teams, like the Cardinals and the Jets and the Browns, are going to be bad forever until that changes, because it all starts at the top.
Yeah. It's such a tease, too. Like Cleveland, such a tease.
Right.
They start rebuilding the right way, and then the owner will come in with this Deshaun Watson deal and then just sabotage the whole thing.
The whole thing, man.
And I will say, I have to say, you should be bookmarking playerprofiler.com/news, if for no other reason than these headlines. And we've talked about the Puka Nacua, that the Rams were bitten by the Puka Nacua incident. It was a jaw-dropping scandal. But also here, I'm going to read this one verbatim. Brees Hall contract extension, both likely and unlikely. That's pretty funny, right?
It's so true, though, too.
But it's
like an onion headline, but it's a fact. You know what I mean?
It's just a fact. Yeah. So I'm like, we aspire at Player Profiler to basically have onion-like headlines.
That's great.
Like here's one right here. Here we go. Let's go back. We got Quinshon Judkins. Okay. Quinshon Judkins. Let's read this. It starts injury propaganda :
Beautiful, dude. It is, though. I think
it's such propaganda. He's gonna be ready for camp. He's gonna be ready for mini camp.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on, man. He's OTAs. Stop it. No one's saying OTAs for Judkins.
That's the thing with Judkins. With my understanding is that like the Judkins and the Cam Scatterbo injuries were like similar to the Chris Godwin injury. I don't understand how the timeline is so drastically different. Like if you told me, week 1 and maybe even like August, I'd say, yeah, sure. You know what I mean? Like, but dislocated ankle, like people are saying Cam Scatterbo is going to be ready for offseason for the spring program.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
I don't think that's true. I think it's injury propaganda, and so I'm very proud of the Player Profiler news desk coming through. Again, just distilling it down to what matters for us here. It makes it really easy to run shows, right? I mean, it's so funny. We're 10 years into this, and I kicked off this whole Player Profiler project a decade ago to help me podcast. And I now share more Player Profiler info during shows than I ever have. Like it is what it is. Like
I share it all the time.
It is what it was built. It is what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I still use the screenshots in all my tight end articles when I'm comparing guys. Like I'll go in there and screenshot uh Kyle Pitts and put it, put him up next to guys like Andre Johnson and these guys, because you can go and see, there's no other places where you can just see like the measurements. One thing that I use all the time for player profile that's super underrated, no other site really just has the players' ages up there in the rankings. Like when I just want to go and see, like, okay, how old is this guy compared to everybody else? It's nice to just have that in the rankings, to go
In
in
the
there and
Dynasty
just
rankings, especially, and we go out to the first decimal. People make fun of that.
it's oddly
Initially, they're like, "Hey, I didn't know that Quinshawn Judkins was 22.6 years old." And it's like, no, actually, they gotta wait. If a guy's 24.1 versus 24.9 at a running back position, that actually really matters. Like,
I said that to you
already. Stop shaking your head, man. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I said that to you in the pre-show. I came in, I was like, yeah, my daughter's 2.6 now.
Yes,
it is a good way to measure. It is a good way to measure age. You know,
yes,
I mean?
it is.
Hey, when you're that young, that 0.1 that's a big chunk of your life. You know what I mean?
For me, it doesn't matter. Sure, I get it, but for in these particular situations, for a 2-year-old daughter, absolutely matters. For a young running back, it absolutely matters.
Yeah, I forgot how old I was for a whole year once, Matt. For 9 months. I went 9 months into a year when I was like, I was telling people I'm 35. And somebody asked, I think my little cousin asked, you're like, how old are you? And I said, I'm 35. And my wife goes, no, you're not. You're 34. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it turns out she was right. So for 9 months, I said I was 35 and I wasn't. So I was 35 years old for 2 straight years, basically, in my mind. I was 35 for a long time.
Dude, no wonder you're doing so good.
Yeah, I just didn't even know. Yeah, I got a year back, dude. It was like daylight savings time.
Yeah,
it was insane, bro. I was like, you're kidding. But yeah, I didn't do the math. 89. So
and then last year, no one was more bullish on Seattle than you. And we were talking about like teams that make good decisions, teams that know how to build rosters, teams that know how to make rational decisions about contracts. And then you see what Seattle's doing, and it's a masterclass. It's an absolute letting Kenneth Walker walk. Like I still can't believe they did that.
Right.
Like that's another level of rationality. That's what real rationality looks like.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I knew they were going to lose. Like what I really loved was how they committed to Clint Kubiak and his vision, and they let him bring Rick Dennison and offensive line guru, right? And they committed so hard to what Kubiak wanted to do, right? And they said, you know what? We'll draft you Robbie Oots, fullback out of Alabama, even though we've never used one here. And we'll let you get your move tight ends. And you know what? We'll draft the most athletic offensive lineman we can find because we know you like to pull, when you run your zone run schemes and then you pull the rug on everybody by pulling a guard. And we'll go get you Gray Zabel. Like they committed, right? And when you see that, the all in on somebody you truly believe in, and I know it's been a running joke for a long time on the show, Shanahan. But if you want the Shanahan scheme, you got to go and get the Shanahan pieces. And I love that the Chargers are willing to do that this year. And they're bringing, they paid Alec Engel. They said, you want to run your scheme, you got to have fullback, bring them along, right? So I love seeing that.
And yet, in best ball right now, people are drafting Luther Burden over Luke McConkey in various situations. You will see it happen.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense. You got to chase the schemes. Now we get into this part here where you got to like it would have been crazy. It never would have happened, but I would have loved if the Seahawks somehow just said, hey, you know what, Clint Kubiak, we don't want you to leave. We're going to make you like co-head coach. Because, you do see that every once in a while, but I knew he was going to end up leaving.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah, but now you have a situation where it could be like the Lions, where when Clint Kubiak and Rick Dennis and all those guys leave, they brought in Fleury, who worked for Shanahan and the 49ers. So they're going to try and do the same thing. But can that guy do the same thing? Because we saw it with the Lions. When Ben Johnson left, it didn't feel the same, did it? It felt empty. It felt like a lot of the deception was gone with the Lions after Ben Johnson was gone. And not just in the play calling, but like this might sound blasphemous, but the 1-2 punch of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, to me, it felt set up a lot of the play action. It set up a lot of the, the Jahmyr Gibbs up the middle. Once you went away from that, you lost a lot of that deception. I worry that with the Seahawks, you could run into similar problems without Kubiak because his zone scheme does set up the man blocking. And if you don't do it right, then it doesn't matter. So I get a little nervous. I was very much in on Seattle last year. This year, the cat's out of the bag, and now with some of the key pieces gone, I'm a little nervous, Matt. I'm a little nervous.
But we care about this year's Seattle, and that's Los Angeles.
That's right.
Yeah, the Chargers. Yeah. The Chargers also they have an even better twin tackles than the Seahawks did. The Seahawks, like I said, the name I always threw out with the Seahawks, I was like, yeah, everyone wants to talk about Kenneth Walker and all these, but yeah. What about a guy like Charles Cross? These are that I can name 5 players that you won't hear interviewed at all. And if you're actually down there on the field and you're playing the game, people are like, oh yeah, these the actual players that they're beating and they're beating up are like, yeah, actually in real life, these are the guys that are the problems.
Gray Zabel should have been
Gray Zabel.
He should have been offensive rookie of the year.
Realize what we were talking about at the draft house pre-draft about these guys? I'm like, this guy, nasty factor. This guy, nasty factor. And like, you had it all up and you put all these guys together. And there's a reason why you go to the Super Bowl. Like I was there and it was just different as opposed to watching it on TV, seeing all these position groups play after play, just dominate. Seattle. I mean, Seattle was just so dominant.
I want to encourage all the listeners, do something new this year. And it's very simple. We'll start very basic, right? When you watch, and you can do it now, pull up a game from last year or some plays. At the start of the play, don't look at the quarterback, don't look at the running back, don't look at the wide receiver. Look at the offensive line, okay? If all the players, their feet are moving in the same direction, say it's a run play, all their feet are moving the same direction, that's typically zone blocking. And if you see guys moving in different directions or you see somebody pulling, that's man-on-man blocking. That's hat-on-hat blocking. And if you start watching plays at the line, see if they're stepping backwards to see if it's going to be a pass play or the type of run play, your enjoyment of football is going to be better. You're going to be able to understand it at a higher level. You'll understand the key characters more because when you see Charles Cross or Trent Williams pulling and going out and lead blocking on a pitch play, right? Versus seeing, just the other run-of-the-mill tackles out there, you're going to appreciate these guys that much more when you say, wow, this guy is doing things that other guys aren't doing. He truly is special. They were way too late on coming up with this Protector of the Year award. They should have always had an offensive line award. The fact that an offensive lineman has never won a major award, no MVP, no offensive player of the year, nothing, has been criminal up to this point. There were definitely years where Trent Williams himself should have won offensive player of the year. Gray Zabel, last year, like Ted McMillan was good. And, Tyler Shuck was fine. But that would have been a great opportunity to come out and say, hey, you know what? This guy was the best. This was the best rookie on offense this year. This player was. His team won the Super Bowl. They drafted him. The team had no continuity. The year before, one of their guards retired during the season. And they brought this kid in and changed everything. And he was a major part. Let's give that guy an award. For all the kids out there, right? Think of how many of the kids have in football, there's only one quarterback. Most kids are playing line. Most kids out there are playing offensive, defensive line. How about we give these guys some awards, some recognition? Finally, they did that, but it's too little, too late. It needs to go way further. So I'll get off my soapbox, but watch the offensive line this year, folks, and become a better football fan, and you'll be a happier person and a smarter person for it.
Do you know who the highest graded player on PFF was week 18 last year?
Who was it?
Gray Zabel.
Gray Zabel. I mean, the guy was incredible. It's like
he had a 93.4 out of 100.
Perfect scheme fit, dude. He was just awesome, man. And
you're not going to see me quoting PFF very often because Player Profiler was built to be a more accessible PFF. But when it comes to offensive line grades, we don't have offensive line grades. Right, so, I I got to tip my cap to the people at Pro Football Focus there, and I buy it, man. I'm buying. I mean, such a nasty player in the best possible way. Gray Zabel.
How did the Bears go from bad to good? They just spent all their money on offensive line.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Picks.
It's like they look for the team in the offseason that's making the investments, making the moves. Or in this case, the Chargers literally already did it, and they're just getting the guys back.
Coming off injuries, even better, because then they get dismissed as having a weak offensive line, and then they're losing players on their offensive line on their last year. It's like, nah, man. You get those 2 tackles healthy, you get Slater, and you get all healthy, it's all going to fall into place. Not worth it.
And you want to talk about a GM masterclass, which I never give the Chargers credit for. The Tyler Biadasz move, they did that, and because he was released. So he doesn't count against the comp pick formula. So if they had gone out and they had signed Tyler Linderbaum, who would have cost them $80 million, right? That also would have cost them a 3rd-round comp pick. Because the comp pick they're going to get for Owe that went to Washington, the pass rusher that went to Washington, that would have to sign any other player in that realm, a top 5 option available, that costs you a 3rd-round pick. They found the one guy that was released, so doesn't count against the comp pick formula, and gave him $30 million and brought him in. I mean,
I still like the idea of signing Linderbaum, though.
Of course. But
whenever I always think, hey, man. I get it. It's a lot of money, but that's $80 million well spent.
Of course, it's $80 million. But for them, for the Raiders, it's $80 million. For the Chargers, it's $80 million and a 3rd-round pick because of the comp pick formula, right? So it's like you got to factor that in, and when you factor that in,
then you can take the next guard.
The Tyler Linderbaum is
pool with a nasty factor in round 3 next year.
Yeah, the Tyler Linderbaum is the round of applause, but for us, we give a little golf clap anytime somebody can maneuver around the comp pick formula and do something like that.
Another news item, Alvin Kamara is still on the Saints. What does that mean?
It means Mickey Loomis doesn't know how to set up a contract, dude. I mean, the contract's fully guaranteed. Like that, middle of the season 2 years ago, Mickey Loomis gave Alvin Kamara $20 million. He just said, here you go, guaranteed. You'll be here next 2 years for sure. But I don't know what Alvin Kamara was playing really well, but there's almost no reason to do that. It was in like November. He was just like, yeah, good season this year. Let's just give you a fully guaranteed deal for the next 2 years, even though we know we're probably going to fire our coach. Like it was to me completely and I'm a massive Kamara fan, completely unnecessary to do it at that time and the way they did it. And there's no way out of this Kamara deal. Nobody wants to make the trade for him. It doesn't make sense. It's just going to be a 2-back system. Here's what it's going to be, Matt. It's going to be a 2-back system with a coach that doesn't like throwing to the running back for a team that Vegas thinks is going to win 7 games. Does that sound bad?
I want to say my gut reaction when I saw the Travis Etienne to New Orleans was that's bad for Travis Etienne.
Right.
That was my initial response. Then I had Theo on the show and I have other people on the show, and they're like, no, actually the situation's okay. They've been investing in the offensive line. Things are going to be fine for Travis Etienne. He got the commitment from the team. That's what's going to carry the day. And now it's like, hey, they might actually open the season with Kamara on the roster.
Yeah.
And if you look at the ADPs, Etienne's going ahead of Breece Hall, ahead of Kyron Williams, which I respect that, ahead of Bucky Irving, Javonte Williams. I mean, at this point, how could you take Etienne over Javonte Williams?
It makes no sense to me at all.
You can't do that.
Javonte Williams.
Touchdowns matter a lot for
people
fantasy,
don't,
right? And the Dallas Cowboys are going to go score a ton of touchdowns this year.
You could fall backwards into 15 touchdowns, right? In Javonte Williams' spot. I don't think people realize.
His ADP is actually adjacent to Lad McConkey. Like the two of the players, right. I'm like, I can't believe you guys are going to pick 40.
People say this about people like, oh, Chase Brown's no good. And I'm like, I honestly don't even care. You know what I mean? Like he's the running back for the Bengals, for Joe Burrow. Like if there's pass interference in the end zone, that's a touchdown. If the ball goes down at the 4-yard line, that's a touchdown. Joe Burrow at this stage with his injury issues and all that, he's not doing draws. Like it doesn't matter. Like you got to you got to account for opportunity sometimes. Like I said, LeGarrette Blount, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, were those guys good? No. Did they score 18 rushing touchdowns because they were in a good spot? Yeah. Like Javonte Williams and Chase Brown, like you got to respect. You have to respect the offense and the situation they're in. And with with Achan, I can't
You
call him
can't.
by the right name. I
Just
know.
call him ETN for now. We all know what that means.
I
Everyone
know.
knows.
And
It's too
I would
late.
just
It's too late to correct it.
yeah. It's dude, this happened once. Do you remember the hockey player Zach Parise?
No.
Dude, he got drafted by the New Jersey Devils, and for 7 years he let all the dudes in New Jersey call him Parise. Hey, Parise, how you doing? And then he got traded to the Wild, and he goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, my name is Zach Parise," and everybody said, "No, it's not." And I never once heard anybody say Zach Parise. So I think after this many years, I think we have a right to reject any name changes at this stage. Like you had your chance at the draft and the combine. But I just maybe next year when Kamara is gone. But if it's a split backfield on a bad team, I just can't get behind it. I can't get behind it.
I had a buddy in college named Bob, and senior year he tried to switch his name to Bobby. Started introducing himself as Bobby and telling us to call him Bobby, and we just laughed. We're like, no, we're not going to call you Bobby now. Like you're Bob. It's way too late, dude. You needed to make this correction freshman year. You waited way too long. It's over.
To be Bobby. Yeah. Imagine if I was just like, yeah, call me Andy, everybody. That's like that boat is so far gone. Like people don't even know my name's Andrew. Like it's Coop. Coop, we're settled, like there's no going back, man.
What about Jadarian Price? Some more running backs. Jadarian Price, where does he go? Because now that we know NFL scouts believe he is a fringe first rounder, he becomes very, very interesting to draft in best ball before the draft, before the NFL draft.
It's so crazy in this modern era with the transfer portal and the NIL. How did Price not get out of there? Like everybody's doing it, man. Everybody's doing it. Go, you know what? Go somewhere and catch a few passes. And that just changes the whole equation for everybody. Go to anywhere and catch a few passes. And then we can all be like, yeah, Jadarian Price, incredible. Right now, we got it's almost sight unseen. We still have seen a ton of them, but like when you're playing with Jeremiah Love, what are you going to do? I mean, if he gets the draft capital in the landing spot, then I'm fully in. Some people ignore that, but like with a guy like this, you have to believe in that. Like, even if you want to you have to throw teammate score into your spreadsheet to make it work, right?
Of course. It's Breakout Finder, the app in the App Store, it's $5, has teammate score.
You gotta throw it in.
Here's the thing, like his ADP in best ball is adjacent to Kenny Gainwell. Like right. Kenny Gainwell is his floor.
Kenny Gainwell basically said he wanted more work and then took the job that pretty much guarantees that he doesn't get it. Kenny Gainwell contract, his decision-making process, he was like, I'll just be Rachaad White. That's what he decided. I feel like of all the players he could have gone, he took the money. He took the bag instead of the ball, which is fine, but I really don't love it. I mean, for Price, so I'll rattle some landing spots. And again, like all these teams that I'm about to name, they only have 3 guys on the roster. That's something I do at this time of year. Just like when I'm doing my mock drafts and stuff, I look and I say, hey, who literally needs to fill bodies out? Because after you get past the first round, like the first round, all the blue chip guys go where you don't even care about positional scarcity. You just have a list of like, okay, these guys are freaks. They're elite. We just need to get them or trade out. After you get out of there, though, these teams are trying to fill out a roster so that they can get through camp. Like you look at the Vikings, they have Aaron Jones, who is an unrestricted free agent next year, Jordan Mason, who is an unrestricted free agent next year, and Xavier Scott, who is a wide receiver converted to running back, which I kind of like a little bit, but they only have 3 guys on the team. And if you're looking at next year, they have 1 guy under contract. That is a team who could be looking to draft another back. That would be perfect for Jadarian Price, the Vikings. What would you feel about if a team like the Ravens or the Texans selected Jadarian Price?
The Texans? I guess the Texans only have three running backs on the roster is what you're saying?
They do. They have David Montgomery, Woody Marks, and Dare Gumbawale, I believe, right now.
Well, he immediately becomes the second best running back on that team, and
And
they
David
could basically envision him as Gibbs, and then just say, "Sorry, hey, Marks, you had your time to shine. You probably earned yourself some money down the road, but for now, it's going to be Jadarian Price." So I like that. I like him pretty much
David
anywhere.
Montgomery
I
can be
love him going
released.
to Dallas, and I'm sure everybody loves him going to Dallas. Most places he can go, I like him. I mean, there's a handful of locations where I don't think he would go because they already have three backs. Like he's not going to Pittsburgh, he's not going to Tampa, he's not going to the Jets. So there's some places we can rule out. But I mean, what do the Bears have behind Monangai?
Yeah, that would be a good landing spot for sure. Because in that situation, you like when you're doing a fantasy wishing for a guy like Jadarian Price, you got to pick either a team where he's just going to flat out start, or pick a team where the other backs on the roster, we already know they're not that great at catching the ball, right? Because then he's in the mix for pass downs. I think that's the biggest problem with his profile right now is that he could be stuck as in a rotation where he's not getting any pass work because we just don't know. We don't know how well he can catch the football. You know,
Yeah, I think Houston is really a smart guess by you
right?
because they have the 38th pick. They have Washington's 38th pick.
David Montgomery, because he was traded, the guaranteed money does not travel with him. He can be released for $7 million in savings and zero dead cap next year. Zero.
Yeah, that would be an unbelievable spot for him.
What
I
about the
mean,
Ravens? Derrick Henry is actually, oddly, one of the only comps historically to have his production profile and hit. Obviously, Derrick Henry is a totally different beast, but like that production profile that he has is not particularly conducive to success. I believe JJ Zach Ryson in his research pointed out there were three guys, and it was Derrick Henry, Donta Foreman, and a player whose name literally does not matter that I can't remember. But if I said it, you'd be like, "Yikes!"
look at these picks in the second round, mid-second round. Look at this. 45 is Baltimore. You can see
Yeah,
Price going there. That's I mean, they just lost Keaton Mitchell. This makes way too much sense. They're going to pick him if he's there. If they don't, I mean, somehow maybe
there's
they
a
don't.
there's a nightmare team in there who also only has three running backs on their roster right now.
Well, Atlanta.
Colts.
I think the Colts are much better than Atlanta.
There are better, but they have Jonathan Taylor. I mean,
I know they have. I know they have
both those
Jonathan
teams are.
Taylor.
But the Colts also need running backs on the team. They need guys in the room.
They do. I know. That's what I was going to say. Baltimore, Indianapolis, Atlanta, Minnesota, Detroit. There's like a murderer's row of options there for Jadarian Price.
That would be good. Yeah, and then there's some bad ones in there too.
Well, there's one that's not going to happen is Tampa, and the one you don't want is Atlanta. Clearly,
I don't want
yes,
Colts
you don't
either.
want Indianapolis either. I know that, but like it's just much different. If you have a guy like Jonathan Taylor who's not viewed like Bijan is as like dynamic in every phase in every way, I think most people view Jonathan Taylor as primarily a grinder between the tackles that's super explosive, like an Adrian Peterson archetype, not like a LaDainian Tomlinson archetype like you have with Bijan Robinson. Plus, he's many years older, so there's a case you could make that
He would be a
Jadarian Price
direct.
in Indianapolis wouldn't be the worst thing.
He'd be a direct backup. Yeah, and I
But
guess
he would be
Jonathan Taylor is an
direct
unrestricted
backup.
free
Don't
agent.
love that. If he doesn't go to Minnesota, then that all the more reason to want Jordan Mason.
Yeah,
Like we saw a real decline in efficiency, which is the hallmark of a dusty running back, a guy that's age 31, Aaron Jones. Like I'm looking at the ADPs and I'm like, in that zone, I like Jadarian Price and I like Jordan Mason.
Aaron Jones is also fighting the injury death sentence battle or the death march battle for running backs on two fronts. When the hamstrings hit, that's a problem, but also these the shoulders, the AC joint issues for running backs, those are they come up from contact, and that becomes problematic as you get older. The Dalvin, and speaking of Vikings, Dalvin Cook dealt with that for years. Dalvin Cook had the AC joint issues, and once you start getting those AC joint problems, you can't lower your shoulder without fear of getting that re-aggravated. Go look at pictures of Keenan Allen's shoulder. It's disgusting. But like those AC joint contact issues for running backs, that could be a real problem as you get older. Huge problem.
Oh man.
So I think Aaron Jones, I think they know that Aaron Jones he really cannot be a between the tackles grinder anymore with the shoulder problems.
Jordan Mason, man. Jordan Mason, not the archetype I typically get behind, but in this particular case, kind of same thing with like Javonte Williams. It's like, hey, there's going to be touchdowns scored here. This is an offense that scores points.
Right.
So Jordan Mason's interesting. Javonte Williams has to, by necessity, he has to be interesting. Jeremiah Love, are you pretty sure he's gonna land poorly as everyone believes? Tennessee or he's never gonna make it to Washington.
Right, that's the concern. I mean, Tony Pollard, like he played his way into keeping his roster spot. He was really brutal early in the year, and then he had a bunch of great games and finished with over 1,000 yards. Not that he's not a guy that will be replaced, but I mean, like he earned his. I mean, yeah. I really hope he doesn't go there. I hope he goes to Washington. I want him to go to Washington or the Giants. I know Cam Scatterbo is a lot of fun and all that, but I feel like the Giants are up and coming for sure with Harbaugh and the gang. That's where I want Jeremiah Love to go. Jeremiah Love to me is like Saquon Barkley in terms of at least the intangible side of things. Like this guy didn't allow a single sack in pass blocking. He didn't lose a single fumble. He fumbled once. He recovered it himself. He says literally all the right things in every video you see. He comes out and says, this is my job, right? That you never hear young guys like that saying that. He goes, what I do after a game is I go home, I go to bed, I play some video games, I talk to the people I want to talk to, and I stay out of trouble. And I take this very seriously because it's my job. It reminds me a lot of the early Saquon Barkley interviews where he was like, I want to be great. And if I wasn't doing this, I would be doing what you're doing because I love football that much. And like all those, like everything I see from that, I see from this guy. And I don't know if he's going to be obviously what Barkley is because Barkley's so good, but like this guy has the makings of a franchise piece, which is why I really hope he does go to a good franchise, which now that Washington, just speaking to everything we talked about with the Cardinals and the Jets, look at the Washington Commanders. You get rid of Dan Snyder and overnight it's like a black cloud was removed from above the stadium. Like,
yeah,
in like Lord of the Rings where the guy's like whispering into the king's ear and he's like, yes. That's literally
Wormtongue.
Exactly. Wormtongue. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Like literally Dan Snyder was Wormtongue. You remove that guy and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, this can be great here. And right away they went to the playoffs and they got Jane Daniels. Like I want him to go to a situation like the Giants or Washington where there's at least some hope. With some of these other teams, I mean, he would just be cast off into obscurity and it would be really sad until he escapes. Right there. Yeah, that's literally Dan Snyder ruining the Commanders for years and years and years. That's Michael Bidwell making himself the president of the Cardinals. It's like, what are we doing here, dude? We need to get real football guys in here. So I hope he goes to Washington. Would the Titans be the end of the world? I don't think so. This is a player I believe in. I believe in him, and I'm going to invest and cross my fingers.
101 in Superflex, over Mendoza. I can see it.
Agreed. That's where I have it.
I can see it. Typically, I'm going quarterback there, but in this case, I can see it.
No, I like it. I like Love there. I just think he's, the hit. If he gets drafted in the top 10, the hit rate of those guys is insane. Even Trent Richardson had 1,400 yards from scrimmage as a rookie, and he's the worst one. Like
it's like, why do we even have the breakout finder? It's like close to 100%.
It's it is 100%.
Right. In the top 10. It's
right. It's like buy Ashton Genty too, just because it's like the
Ashton Genty. Yeah, we had a great comment in the chat about Ashton Genty that they're getting their offensive line back together and the new offensive line coaching. New offensive line leadership, and they're getting key pieces, and they signed Linderbaum. They did all the right things to help Genty. So yeah, Genty, an absolute smash.
Do you want to hear something annoying? Raiders, another one of those teams that only has 3 guys under contract. So they're gonna punish somebody. So one of your favorite prospects out there is gonna end up in a backfield behind Ashton Genty. Just hope you guys know that.
Jonah Washington.
Yeah, could easily be one of those guys.
Yeah.
Easily.
Who is your favorite sort of sleeper running back, rookie running back?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how deep you want to go. I do
Oh,
like
Jonah Coleman. Why did I say?
Jonah
Oh, because
Coleman.
he
Yeah, yeah.
played at Washington.
When you said Jonah Coleman, I just thought you were just kind of doing like a portmanteau of Jonah Coleman and Malik Washington. So I was like, yeah,
Oh,
one of
right.
those two
No,
guys.
that's right. I
I thought you
misspoke.
were kind
No, I
of.
misspoke. Yeah,
I thought you were kind of covering them all.
That was
with,
funny. That was a really. I
I thought
don't
you were
feel
just
bad
making.
about that at all. I'm
Right,
really
no, it
hard on
made sense
myself
to
when it
me.
comes to the delivery and the broadcasting. But in that case, I was like, no, he went to Washington, Jonah Washington. That's the and there's also Mike Washington Jr.
I thought you were just creating like a tier 2, 3.
Oh yeah, Jonah
hypothetical
Washington.
guy.
Yes, we should. This is
I was
what
like,
we're
yeah.
doing.
You
This
covered it.
is what we're doing. Yes, there's Jeremiah Love, there's Jadarian Price, and then there's just Jonah Washington.
Jonah, that whole group, right? You nailed it there. I do kind of like Mike Washington's athleticism, but he's not really a sleeper because he's some people rank him.
I go deeper.
The kid, and again, I fall for this stuff all the time. But the kid out of Navy, Eli Heidenreich,
Nice.
I can fall for that, man. It's just a team that never throws the ball, decides that they're going to throw it a ton to a running back because he's got this special skill set and they don't really have like special guys floating around. It's like it's got both sides of the coin for me in terms of like fantasy prospect wishing, where I can say, okay, on one hand, he did do this, and then I can also hand wave away the rest of it because I can say, well, it's Navy and it's not real football. I watched the Army Navy game with everybody else, but like, come on now. When was the last time either of those teams threw it even 300 times? Maybe literally never. Like, it's gimmicky. So I can say, okay, they got this one guy. I think he was good at catching the ball, and he was played in the weird spot. So I'll rationalize it that way. And like pass catching is the easiest way to get your foot in the door for fantasy.
Oh, yeah, easily. Who do you think is a better quote unquote handcuff wide receiver? Flournoy or Tesla?
Oh man, they're both good. I think in terms of we're looking for consolidation, right? We're looking for a role, right? Like both the two roles for Pickens and for CD Lamb, like are fantastic for fantasy. And Flournoy is big enough to play split end. The thing with Tesla is that he actually ended up playing way more snaps out wide than I thought he would. I'm not sure he would be an Amon-Ra St. Brown replacement if Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt. I think he really just is kind of their Tim Patrick, like big split end.
Point. He doesn't have the same versatility as Flournoy.
Right. So Flournoy could be the guy. I mean, of the two, I think Tesla has more standalone value, but Flournoy would be the better handcuff.
That's a great take.
Yeah,
that is
the best one.
That is a correct take. That is so right. You're so right as rain on this.
Based on our discussions today, the best wide receiver 3 handcuff might be Quentin Johnston, if that's how we think it pans out. Because like you want to have a scheme where it's two wide receiver sets. Like think about the 49ers.
He just doesn't have the upside. You put Flournoy in that role, in that Lamb role, he's gonna put up weekly like Michael Wilson type output. Is in his range of outcomes. That's not in the universe of what Quentin Johnston's capable of.
Well, it's just it's based on the thing about a handcuff is that I want something where it's like just like in running backs to some degree, the pure handcuff running back that where the role above him isn't a split role, they get the biggest launch, right? Because you're not jumping into a split role, you're jumping into a full role. And same with wide receivers. If you have these schemes, like take the Vikings, for instance, not the Vikings, take the 49ers. For years, whenever one of Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk were hurt, Juwan Jennings would immediately go in there and get like 8 targets. And then he would go right back to being the guy that sits out for the fullback and for the tight end and stuff. Like that scheme that Mike McDaniel runs, to be a top 2 guy in that scheme gives you the world. So if Quentin Johnston is the wide receiver 3, and then Trey Harris gets hurt or Lam McConkey gets hurt, he just jumps up into that spot. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I kind of look at it that way, where like who can get elevated into a crazy role. And I think that plays to Flournoy, is that Flournoy is probably going to be the odd man out in a big way because they have the 2 tremendous wide receivers and Jake Ferguson, who is, Turd Ferguson. He's solid, but he's not breaking tackles. He caught 80 passes and only had 600 yards. Like he's there, right? But like you're getting leapfrogged into this tremendous role.
There are a lot of people that do not believe Jake Ferguson's a guy.
He's just a guy.
They actually think that he's above average.
I know, man. It's
weird.
The thing with it is volume, right? Just imagine you give the volume that he got to. I mean, look at George Kittle and what he does on 100 targets. I've seen George Kittle have like 1,200 yards on 90 targets, and then you got Ferguson, Turd Ferguson. I remember that was a show we were on that we threw that on there, dude. Yeah. Going way back, yeah.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. We did this.
It was a long time ago.
I'm so happy that we've started doing the new headshots again. Have you seen the latest one?
No, I haven't. I was just chuckling. One. Oh, there you go, dude. I mean, he's getting suspended, right? Like,
I've only talked about him in 3 straight shows. I was trying to do my audience
you don't want to do it again.
Here and not talk Puka in this show, because what was happening was, because we're the only show talking about Puka, there was just too much.
You're getting
It was too much, but then everyone was like, "You gotta talk Puka." It's like, "I don't know, we need you, Podfather. You need to give us the real talk on Puka." And I'm like, "I will," but we've only talked about him for, I don't know, over an hour across 3 shows. Can we maybe talk about other players? And
can I just get one take in and we'll just move on?
Yeah,
I watched Zeke Elliott get suspended for 6 games, which is the first time domestic violence policy for accusations that never actually amounted to anything. In this particular case, Puka Nakua's agent admitted that he bit this woman and he called it horseplay. Like, the moment that his agent admits that Puka Nakua bit the woman, like, isn't he going to get suspended?
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Things have changed, man.
Like, that's now the NFL doesn't do their do they do their own investigation anymore?
There was a time, it was like a 5-year stretch where the NFL was so image conscious.
Yeah, it's a witch hunt season.
It was. It really kind of sort of lined up with just how, like, social forces,
right,
from like 2017 to 2022. It was pretty much like you have an intersection with law enforcement, you're going down for like more than half the season.
Even not just law enforcement. You had Zeke, you had the Tom Brady, Deflategate, you had the Saints with Bountygate. Like, they were bringing the hammer down around that time.
So the hammer was coming down very hard on a lot of players, most of them for good reason. Some of them it was a little extreme. Now the NFL just said, "Hey, listen, if there's anything, we're not going to jump to any conclusions. We're waiting a year to make our judgment call. We're going to let all the evidence come out. We're going to let all the proceedings happen, and then we'll make a call, and then we'll actually maybe not do anything." And so it's just a very different environment. And so I don't know anymore. Like, I can't guess what they're going to do.
There was a time. You're right, because I haven't heard that as much anymore. Because there was a time where it was the NFL does their own investigation.
Right? Oh yeah, they're always doing their own investigation. They were preempting law enforcement with their suspensions and all these things. And now it's like, we might hear about Rashee Rice and what they're going to do with Rashee Rice in 9 months.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing with let go, let God there in the chat saying Kamara had a video of him beating somebody up clear as day and he got 4 games. Well, that was assault. It's a different category when you have domestic, right? Like Kareem Hunt, the video of him kicking the woman, it was, it's not like he like drop kicked her, but she was on the ground and he kicked her. Like, he got run off from his team, like, so you say Kareem Hunt did worse things? Kareem Hunt was out of the league for a big chunk of time before he was able to come back, So, like, you look at this situation of like, what's worse, what's not? Well, the definition of like domestic violence, assault on a woman, I mean, like biting somebody, and why his agent would come out and say that and admit that he bit the woman is beyond me. But like, in terms of doing your own investigation, the NFL doesn't have to go that far to find his representation saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, he bit her, but it was all in good fun." But she's saying it's not. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like when you look at it that way, I am pretty nervous that Puka Nacua, they're gonna say, hey, did you bite this woman? Yes. Okay, well, we got to suspend you. Because
Do you see how this can become a 40-minute segment?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude,
You
that
can
was supposed to be a
feel
quick
the
take.
pull, right?
Let's go back. Let's go back. How do we get back?
pull.
But how do we get back? Let's go back. How do we,
This is
how
what
do
I'm
we
saying.
get out of here?
I was like, we're gonna break the
in.
seal on Puka. We break the seal on Puka.
Let's get out.
My
Let's
fault.
get out.
I brought up the
Let's go
headshot,
back.
the new shark head shot.
Shark head shot. Yeah, that did it.
It's my fault. I get it. But we're talking
my
about
favorite comp
threes.
is still in the system. My favorite comp is still Calvin Johnson's comp to LeBron James. I still think that's the best comp in the system.
That was a fun one. I remember, we're going to be doing more of that. This is going to be a fun year for player. We're going to have a lot of fun in player profiler this year. So wide receiver threes. We're talking about Gallup. We're talking about Tesla. What about Pearsall? Do you consider him a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 with Kirk there now and Evans?
I consider him to be 2, and
okay.
I will be in.
You're in.
And I think that this landing spot for Evans is great for his career, because for a long time he was forced to play the most difficult role in all of football, the split end role where you're out wide, getting beat up, fighting the jam, so that Chris Godwin could reap the benefits. Like in a vacuum, people say, oh, who is better, Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? Well, Chris Godwin's scoring more fantasy points. He's better. Mike Evans has always been better, but he's had to play the tougher role, right? So now he gets to go somewhere where they do a lot of 2 tight end sets and a lot of fullback, and he's going to get to go in motion, and he's going to get to do all the fun pre-snap stuff. And there is no kind of designated role. I think he's going to
like that.
Do a little more, but Ricky Pearsall is also going to be the guy. Whoever is in the top 2 chairs in that scheme, it's good. It's
got to be Pearsall, right? Come on,
it's got to be Pearsall. And Christian Kirk, for what he is at this stage, a pure slot guy that should be a part-time guy that cannot stay healthy. Well, you know what? It's probably a good situation for him to just come in for only pass downs and not have to run block and just play a part-time role. And if somebody gets hurt, then he gets elevated and we pick him up off waivers, whatever. But it is a golden opportunity for Pearsall. He could faceplant. That's entirely in the range of outcomes, the Pearsall faceplant. But I really, truly, at this stage, am getting to the point where I only embrace upside. And the upside is tremendous based on the scheme and based on, Brock Purdy, incredibly efficient. And the scheme is so quarterback friendly. And, he's running high A-dot routes. Like, you got to lean into that. If this was a situation where the team was going to put 3 wide receivers on the field for, 80% of the snaps and say, let the best man win, then that wouldn't be as ideal, right? Then there's the possibility he just does end up a field stretcher or whatever. But because of the way the scheme is set up, you almost get force-fed targets,
DK Metcalf or Ricky Pearsall?
Oh man. Yeah, because Metcalf, again, they're doing the same thing that the Broncos are doing. Like, Metcalf's going to be the big guy on the outside, and Pittman's going to get to be slot flanker. I think I'm going to go Pearsall there.
I think I'm going to go Pearsall there.
I think I'm going to
go Pearsall. You got to just based on the quarterback. There's not enough talk about the Purdy effect with Pearsall. Purdy's so efficient. He's such a perfect fit for Pearsall. He really is going to benefit from that. Whereas, that's certainly a weakness for the quarterback position, is a weakness for DK Metcalf. Jacoby Myers is another guy in that same zone of ADP, as well as Jordan Addison, and Chris Godwin himself is in there.
I have no interest
I like Jacoby Myers. I think that's another one of these ambiguous passing games you can bet on. Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas. Just put your chips on these Jaguars, and 2 of them will likely rise to the top. We're just not sure exactly who they're probably going to be Brian Thomas, and then one of Washington or Myers is.
I'm out on Myers, man. I was hoping that he would get the Chris Godwin role, that he would be the slot guy that plays flanker, but they like Parker Washington.
They like Parker Washington too much. So I think that's an easy Pearsall over Myers.
Yeah.
I think it's an easy Pearsall over Jordan Addison as well. Pearsall is essentially in a similar situation. He's just a much better player, much more explosiveness, more upside there.
Yeah.
And so, in that zone of ADP, pretty much it's got to be Michael Wilson before, if you're going to find some adjacent receiver. that I would prefer over Pearsall, but after Michael Wilson, it's Pearsall.
Yeah, that scheme is great. With guys like Addison, like I don't
Get
know,
out
man.
of here.
I get
No,
real
no
nervous.
interest. Zero.
Yeah,
interest.
because the thing with
No.
Kyler
Who
is
are these
that
people that are drafting him where they're drafting him?
Kyler, everyone knows him as a scrambler, but on the plays when he doesn't scramble, like this guy has been a top 3 quarterback in getting the ball out of his hands in under 2 seconds. He either throws it right away or he runs around like crazy. He doesn't get through his reads. So if you're running these like second, third read routes, he didn't even see you. You know what I mean? Like he's just.
Why do you think Michael Wilson didn't produce at all with Kyler Murray?
Because he's running like
never got to him in the read progression.
Exactly, like he's running like a deep out, and you don't get that far, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be bad news.
Addison is a bad pick there. Addison is a hard fade in all formats, Dynasty especially, because he's still got that youth. Now with the Giants, you got Mooney there now. And they brought in Mooney after they already had Austin. So they signed Austin, and they're like, no, we're going to double down on this position. Maybe not a good idea. I don't know. But you got Mooney and Austin in New York, and that's interesting with Neighbors coming back from injury.
Right, because, again, that's another offense where there's been a huge shift recently. In our minds, like a lot of us that grew up on football in the early, the 90s, early 2000s, in your mind, you still think 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, right? But last year was the first year I can remember in a long time where per Sumer Sports, no team ran 3 wide receiver sets more than 70% of the time, or just pure 11 personnel, 70% of the time, which we've seen a ton of that from teams like the Bengals and the Rams. So there's a lot more teams that are really leaning into 2 wide receiver sets. And you look at what the Giants are doing. You're bringing in Isaiah Likely. They brought over Patrick Ricard, the fullback. They got Theo Johnson already. Whoever is that other guy, if there is going to be another guy opposite Malik Neighbors, there's big upside there. Darnell Mooney
should be Mooney, or it could be Player X from the draft.
Could be if they go out. So if they go out and get a split end and do what everyone else is doing, like let's say they go for Denzel Boston, then you've got
Boston at 37.
Then you've got Malik Neighbors in the Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb role, and Denzel Boston is being your T. Higgins, and now Malik Neighbors doesn't face the top corner a lot of weeks because just based on the nature of the scheme. Like you look at Christian Gonzalez and Sauce Gardner, those guys don't go in the slot ever. It's just part of the scheme. 7-10 snaps a year. They're not chasing in there. Trent McDuffie does it, but those guys don't do it. So like you can put Neighbors in there and they're not going to go get him, you know? So if you're a Neighbors fan, I wouldn't be upset if they draft a big guy on the outside, even if it's Carnell Tate.
Denzel Boston is an incredible fit.
Yes. Now, if they draft a Mekhi Lemon or one of these slot guys, that means
how are they going to get them though? They're first round picks.
Okay, well, Zachariah Branch. Anybody maybe not that far down, somewhere in that range where it's
Zachariah Branch would be
Omar Cooper or somebody like that, where it's like now Malik Neighbors has to play out wide. Now he has to be the alpha and he has to face the top corners and he's got to play that role, which, it's an honor, but it's also more difficult to have a monster season. So if you're a Malik Neighbors fan, what they do in the draft absolutely matters.
Denzel Boston in New York. I love that. That is one of my favorite fits. But in terms of the rookie receivers, though, when you look at the top receiver, Lemon is starting to encroach on Carnell Tate for me. How do you feel about the top couple of receivers in this class? Because I like them.
Yeah, for those guys, I think for this class more than any in the past, the landing spot and the scheme fit are going to matter. I think these guys are all going to get the draft capital. Tyson is the one that you say, okay, maybe he goes, maybe he falls farther than we think. But assuming they all get the capital, where they land is going to be so crucial because Carnell Tate, as much as I love him, he could end up in a sacrificial X type situation because he is a pure outside guy, 80% or more of his snaps. I don't think he's going to be like a Tim Patrick type guy or Nick Westbrook-Kine, but he could end up in a situation where like Marvin Harrison Jr. is asked to play the most difficult role in football for a team that prioritizes another pass catcher. That could happen. Like, what if Carnell Tate ends up next to Malik Neighbors? He would have to be T. Higgins.
What's the highest Tate's being mocked? Like 7 to Washington?
Pretty high, yeah. And that would be
6
fine.
to Cleveland?
Washington would be good because Terry McLaurin's not a target hog. He never has been. He's a fast, high.
That's what you want. You want Tate going to Washington,
Yes.
assuming Love doesn't make it there.
You want him going to a spot where, like, he's the guy that can get 140 targets, not where he's going to be the guy that gets 110 targets and somebody else gets 150. With Lemon, he's the complete opposite, where he ran 75% of his routes from the slot. The concern with him is that he ends up a part-time slot guy, which really great players have started out that way.
Mm-hmm.
CeeDee Lamb, JSN, Luther Burden, and then they transcend that. But that's a concern, is that you look at guys like Josh Downs and you look at Jaden Reed, and we pull up our spreadsheets and we look at Josh Downs and we say, man, this guy has got great separation and he's winning all his routes and he's good versus man-to-man. Why isn't he breaking out all over the place? Well, it's because he's a part-time player, because he's not a good run blocker, and because he comes out for 2 wide receiver sets. That's a concern for Lemon. And the which hurts him to some degree, but if he transcends that, the moment he transcends that, now he's got the biggest ceiling of anybody.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Lemon to the Eagles or Browns at 23, 24 would be a dream.
Yeah.
He doesn't make it past that. He can't make it past the Browns at 24.
He won't.
Assuming the Browns if the Browns don't take Tate.
And
if the Browns take Tate, then forget it. But that there's a bunch of teams where I can't see them drafting a wide receiver, like the Cowboys.
The thing that makes the Browns,
the Chargers,
Cowboys would be a nightmare.
Lemon to the Chargers would be interesting if they can dump Johnston on somebody.
Right.
Lemon to the Chargers would be interesting.
Assuming
but again,
it works
they already
out.
have that archetype in place. I think the Eagles would be the dream spot for him at 23.
The Browns also use a lot of 2 tight end sets, and you know that Todd Monken and the gang are going to come over and keep doing that. Like that, you want these wide receivers to be in a position where they can't come off the field, right? Like whoever goes to the Dolphins is going to play every single snap, right? Like that's a landing spot where do they pick? They're too far. They're too early, right? They're way up there, yeah.
Well, Dolphins are at 11. I think that's as early as he goes.
Whatever.
I think Lemon is going to go to either the Dolphins at 11.
I would be in for that.
And if he doesn't go to the Dolphins at 11, I think he slips. I think he slips down
Bobby
10 picks.
Bobby Slowick runs that same scheme. Whoever the Dolphins pick, the Dolphins need help all over the place. But like Bobby Slowick's best season, well, Bobby Slowick's really only meaningful season was 2023 Texans. But look at Nico Collins and Tank Dell that year. Good. Like, because they used they used Adam Prentice as a fullback, 4th most fullback snaps of any team in the league. Shanahan, it's the same scheme. So like, whoever goes to the Dolphins, I'll be in on. I don't even care.
Oh yeah.
Just because of availability. We want to avoid the situation where they get stuck as a slot guy. Like, dude, if the Bengals take Mekhi Lemon, I mean, that would be sad.
It could happen.
And the thing is, everybody's like, oh yeah, the Bengals, Joe Burrow. It's a great landing spot for wide receivers and tight ends. Dude, they committed to these guys, Higgins and Chase. Like, it is not a good landing spot. It is a bad landing spot.
What about Sadiq? How do you feel about him?
I'm willing to get hurt again, brother. I look at
Yep.
It's like I'm seeing, and dude, I am like, this was my guy for so long. Like, I'm just seeing so much Evan Engram in this guy. Which is a good and bad thing. And if he goes to the right spot and everything's perfect and he's used right and he gets the targets, I mean, with that speed and that athleticism, he could be so good. And if he goes to the wrong spot where they try to like have him play with his hand in the dirt, like Jason Garrett did with Evan Engram, it could be so bad. Could be catastrophic. And that's scary. But here's the thing. Again, Dynasty is such a top-heavy game where all the good teams in Dynasty are so good and all the other teams are correctly rebuilding. Like, the game is built that way that I only care about upside. And the upside for Sadiq is so good, man, that I'm just willing to get hurt again. So I don't care. I will go for ceiling every time. And if you come to me and say, oh, yeah, the guy's not big enough, he can't block well enough, he's going to be a part-time guy, I'll say, yeah, That's in the range of outcomes, brother. I get it. But what about the other side of the range? What about the side of the range where he's the fastest tight end of all time and he's playing wide receiver and we can start him at our tight end slot in fantasy? Tight end eligibility is everything. If this guy was a wide receiver, I'd say, but because I can start him at tight end in fantasy football, hell yeah. It's like in fantasy baseball when you get like a catcher that they say, oh, just go play outfield, and now you can start him at catcher. It's like, yeah, that changes the equation completely. I don't even care if this guy is just okay. I can start him at tight end, and that's Sadiq, and that's also Eli Stowers. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'll take a shot. If it doesn't work, it didn't work. But if it works,
this is a great year to love athletic rookie tight ends and
right.
to scout them. This is the year you want. This is the
crazy.
one thing we here is the tight end class that we can get excited about for real.
So many years, it's like the fourth best tight end runs a 4.9, and we're like, okay, cross him off then, right?
Yeah.
Like he's dead, cross him off. This year, everybody ran a 4.6. Or a couple guys run a 4.5.
With Sadiq, I see him like range of outcomes. Okay, Vernon Davis, best case, medium case, Kyle Pitts, worst case, OJ Howard.
It's all there.
When it comes to Kyle Pitts right now, do you have a strong take on what he is, what he can be, will be?
I will always bet on those players. I will always bet on those players because there just aren't enough of them. You know what I mean? Maybe if the NBA didn't exist, we'd have these guys coming out of our ears, but it does. So like you don't get guys that are 6'5" and run a 4.4. Like it's not a thing. And at the tight end position, more than any other, straight line speed matters. You look at the difference between George Kittle and Jack Doyle. It's the fact that George Kittle can outrun linebackers and tight ends and safeties, and he has 17 40-plus yard plays. He has the only tight end with multiple 70-plus yard plays. And Sadiq and Stowers and Pitts, they run a 4.5 or better, 98th percentile speed. Chigakonkwo runs similar speed. Like that is a difference-making ability that you're never going to get. You can give the ball to Jake Ferguson a million times. You're never going to get that. There it is right there. This is why this guy has 80 catches and only 600 yards, right? You look at even a guy like Zach Ertz. In our minds, Zach Ertz was like having all these like bonkers seasons. He had one 1,000-yard season, and he needed 156 targets to get there. There's only so many guys that could go out and do something special. Kyle Pitts, absolutely, his range of outcomes is to at some point have the greatest fantasy season of all time for a tight end because of his ability. And you just can't take regular guys, run-of-the-mills Luke Schoonmakers and assign that possibility to them. So I'll continue to bet
if you're not fast, you have to be one of the most exceptional athletes, like a Jason Witten.
Yes, you have to fist fight your way up and down the field.
You have to be so incredible. So this class from last year, they both are broke out, are on a trajectory to be superstar tight ends, Loveland and Warren. Between those two for this year, who you got?
Oh, man, incredibly close between those guys. Their usage was even very similar. I will go with Loveland.
What?
Yeah, man.
You're really in on this Bears offense. If you like,
I do like the Bears.
Burden as much as you do.
Yeah, I think that the thing with Loveland is he's going to be less of
Warren is so teed up, man.
I know. I think they're more, that team's more of a risk. If we go through the draft season and the rest of free agency and they don't add a wide receiver 3, then I'll be more on board with Warren. I love Warren. We're splitting hairs here, especially in Dynasty. It's so close with these guys. Loveland's a little bit younger. Also, just how many times ever do you see tight ends?
Well, Loveland's tethered to Caleb Williams in Dynasty. That's a different ball game. That's a different ball game.
Same for this year.
Loveland in Dynasty for sure, but Warren
same for this year. Warren's
seasonal
awesome,
leagues.
If you could create a tight end in a lab, it would probably look quite a bit like Tyler Warren. It's just Colston Loveland in that scheme and the way they were using him at the end of the year. How do you not look at that? And that was with DJ Moore there. How do you not look at that and say, wow, this guy as a rookie came out and had multiple games with double-digit targets? Tight ends are never getting double-digit targets. This guy had back-to-back games with 10 targets. Like, I don't know how you put that back in the bottle. He also was running higher ADOT routes than Tyler Warren. The one thing that Warren had going for him that Colston Loveland didn't is that, oddly, Colston Loveland did not get a single screen pass on the entire year. Tyler Warren got 13. Like, we love, in the tight end world, we love screens because, that's how you avoid the goose eggs. You know what I mean? Like, if you can get a screen pass every game and catch at least one pass, you feel better about those guys. Loveland was not used at all in that facet, which is a little scary, but everything else was there. I mean, the ADOT, success versus man-to-man, the route participation, the wide receiver snaps. I mean, both great, but right now I lean Loveland before the draft because I think that the Colts are a huge risk to draft a wide receiver, whereas the Bears not so much.
I think Ashton Genty's the RB3 this year.
Okay, I get on board with that.
Yeah, so that's one of my many hot takes. Get out of here, man. Give us a hot take.
The scheme's great. That is a hot take. Here's a take that people, you know what? I'm gonna do one here that people are gonna hate. I think people are going to have to start accepting the possibility that Deshaun Watson is going to be more fantasy relevant than we want him to be. I think people are going to have to come to terms, especially this time of year, in the best ball streets. Yes, where this guy, if put in a head-to-head competition with Shadur Sanders, is going to blow him out of the water. And he will be a starting quarterback for this team, right? And when you look at it historically, yes, he has had the injuries, but that injury was way back in January 2025. He's going to be a full year removed from the injury. And when he was healthy, like, this guy was a good football player. He still, to this day, Matt, if you take every quarterback in the history of the NFL and sort them by fantasy points per game, Deshaun Watson is 4. So when you look at the underdog best ball ADP, and he's QB 36 off the board, if he is either starting quarterback for the Browns, obviously he's going to blow quarterback 36 ADP out of the water. And there's a real possibility that this guy comes out and is cracking your best ball lineups every other week. So just keep that in mind with Deshaun Watson. We don't want it to be true, but the stigma against him and the perceived QB battle between him and Shadur Sanders is destroying his ADP. And at some point, in best ball very early now, but in your dynasty leagues and your redraft leagues, you might need to come to terms with the possibility that this is a guy that you're going to have to go, look at. So Deshaun Watson, fantasy relevant again in 2026 after like 6 years of not being fantasy relevant. There you go. People are going to hate it. I see that. I already see the emojis in the chat, but people are going to have to deal with it.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.